What's up, boys? It's Nick from Team Fluffal 1 here. I'm the king of the scrubs, and today I'm going to bring you my Fluffal deck profile for the June 2018 format / WCQ season. Now, I did play this deck at the Garden City Regional. I did awful. I did not expect to do well at all, mostly due to the fact that I haven't really been playing the game as much, just due to my disinterest in the game as of late. You know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Just kind of sucks at the moment because every single deck has now skyrocketed back to almost $1,000. If you want to do well in the competitive scene, I just don't have that kind of money. So I just wanted to play something fun, and I started off really well with a lot of non-interactive Yu-Gi-Oh. Two of my matches were my opponent's reincarnation drolling me, and then my other match was getting extra link for 15 minutes and not drawing my outs. So I won't do a tournament report, as there's not really much to talk about. It was just a lot of non-interactive Yu-Gi-Oh. So that was about it. But I'm going to tell you this right now, this deck is not very well positioned in the format unless you have like a really awesome build or you're the best player on Earth, apparently. Because after playing this deck over and over and over again at multiple locals and a regional, this deck is not very good right now. It's just not. But if you want something fun to play for your locals, this could probably 4-0 or 5-0 local if you got really lucky. So, and you do get to play some very good cards that are just good against Sky Striker, that are good against Trickstar. Just those decks are inherently better than yours. But anyway, I will have a link to the deck profile in the description. I also have my Facebook and my Twitter linked in the description. Go follow me there. I post some cool shit. And without further ado, before I begin, shout out to my homeboys Jacob and Austin. They helped me test for this regional. They also did really well. They were really on the bubble for their invites, but they fizzled. But shout out to them. They helped me put a ton of theory and a ton of just cards into this deck. So, without further ado, let's get right into the deck profile. That should be good enough for now. So to start off with the main deck, we have the monsters. 3 Doggo, because, it's a Stratos. You obviously play 3 of the Stratos in the deck. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You just have to play 3 of this card. 2 Bear. I was originally only playing 1 of this card, but it just turns out that you just kind of need 2 in this deck. Like, very rarely are you going to run out of vendors, so this card's almost never dead. Like, you just always want to have access to Vendor on turn 1 just in case you have access to Wings or Brilliant Fusion. So having this card accessible is really nice. And the fact that I usually want 1 for the hand effect and 1 for the field effect that lets me get Poly out of my graveyard. Like, it's so recurable. The most broken card in the deck, 2 Wings. Whoever designed this card was smoking crack. Like, this card is the fucking shit. Like, draw 2 cards and send Toy Vendor to the grave is great. Hold on a second. Not bad. So yeah, this card is just amazing. You don't play 3 because you don't want to open it. I want to send it off Brilliant Fusion most of the time. Like, having this card in my opening hand is pretty bad unless I have Bear or Vendor, so. Only 2 Wings. 3 Penguin. You have to play 3 in this deck, honestly. If you're playing less than 3, I think you're just doing it wrong. This is the card I just always want to have access to in my hand for a fusion summon. And it's honestly one of your best fusion materials because it gets you to more of your deck and it lets you see more combo pieces. Yes, it's 1 per turn, and yes, it's dead if you draw it afterwards. But most of the time, you don't even care if you have another copy in your hand because you only need to resolve the effect once. You only need to resolve 1 effect in order to get yourself in a really good position to win the game. And honestly, if I have to fuse with 2 Penguins in a turn, if it means I get either board presence or I just kill my opponent, I'm perfectly fine with that. And also by running 3, even if you fuse with 2, and you only resolve 1 of their effects, you still have another one in the deck for a future play, meaning you get to see more cards. And you can summon it, get a guy out of your hand, and then search another card. So definitely have to play 3 Penguins. And then the last Fluffal I play is 1 Owl. Owl is really good because it lets you out all the stupid spell floodgate bullshit that everybody's running. So this lets you out Anti-Spell, Imperial Order, Nacheria Beast, which I had to run into at the regional. You can out cards against Pendulum Magician like Naruto and 38 that just negate spell cards. So, yeah, this card lets you get rid of all of it. And you can just summon it and search a Poly, which is really good with Brilliant Fusion because you can use your additional normal to get Poly, and then you can use your additional normal on Penguin or Dog to just spam the board of monsters so you can do really big link summons. So that is it for the Fluffals. I play 11. I think it's a pretty standard number in this deck. I think most of us would agree that you need to be playing at least 10. Like, I think 10 is the bare minimum you can get away with, just because you do need to see pieces in your hand to fusion summon. So, And then for the Edgems 3-chain, RIP Patchwork, until we get that card, you have to play 3. This is by far one of the best cards in the deck, letting you search Fright for Fusion. And adding extra copies of itself for future plays is really good. And the 1800 defense is actually really important, because if your opponent makes you go first, you can assume they're playing like some go second deck. You can just set this guy, and then run this, and then they have to smack it. And the thing is, Candina can't run over this. So I had a Trickstar guy at the regional. We literally just sat there for 2 turns because he couldn't get any monster to attack over this. Like, he couldn't even search Lilybell because he banished it off Desires. The one Saber, you only need to play one because it is searchable in this deck. You don't need to play any other card. Or you don't need to play any other copies, excuse me. And the Plague Spreader effect actually matters in this deck, because if you draw the Garnet, because I am playing Brilliant Fusion, you can use this guy's effect from the graveyard, put the Garnet back in your deck, and then summon this guy, and then you can resolve your Brilliant Fusion, which I did once at the regional. But I did it a ton at locals, so, and I did it in the side events. Bubbled the side events too, but whatever. 3 King of the Swamp, more polys is always good. The fact that this isn't once per turn is really good. And the fact that it counts as fusion material if the other material is correct. No, 1 Garnet. Playing Brilliant Fusion, obviously. 3 Brilliant Fusion, this is the best card in the deck. Like, you just want to try to resolve this card if at all possible. This card generates a lot of advantage in this deck. And I know that a lot of Fluffal players are like, I don't want to play Brilliant Fusion. Honestly, you just kind of have to. Like, bite the bullet, get your $50, pick up the playset. You're going to be very happy when you do. However, if you don't have the money or just don't want to pick it up, I totally understand that. So I would just play more Kaijus, or I'd play Mind Control. Mind Control was actually a really solid tech that I was playing in the main deck for a while, but I just ended up putting Brilliant Fusion in because I was able to pick them up, and it just ended up being a better overall card. But Mind Control is still a very solid card in this deck because you still want to go second. You get to take your opponent's best thing and link with it. So, yeah. And then for the staples, 3 Toy Vendor, 3 Polymerization, and then this is where my builds usually change. I'm only playing 1 of each Frightful card. I really wanted to play 2 Fusion in this deck, but not only is there just not room, I found myself just drawing a dead Frightful Fusion in my opening hand a majority of the time. And I felt like I wanted, like, whenever I see my opening hand, I just want to see combo pieces and negation, specifically Called by the Grave, but I'll talk about that in a minute here. But this card is a brick, and really, I got into a couple arguments on the Fluffal Facebook page about this, but I do understand where they're coming from. And they do have some points where if you're resolving more than 1 Frightful Fusion in a game, you're either in a losing position and trying to crawl your way back in, which at that point your opponent should have just killed you so they fucked up, or you're in such a winning position that you're just overextending for no reason. So you only need 1 because it's searchable. Same thing with Factory. And a Factory acts as another poly. So it means that if your opponent impermanences you, and then to get your poly that was in a column, you can just put the Factory in another column and then still extend for the turn. So, and this can get the Frightful Fusion back, so. Those cards are searchable. And then 3 Foolish Burial Goods, you know, the staple. So for the most part, I would say that these 33 cards are staple in this deck. The last 7 you could argue. Even the 3 Called by the Grave I would argue are staple, because Droll and Lockbird is by far your worst enemy because you can add like 11 cards to your hand in a turn. And if you get trolled, you literally just can't play the game. So you need to have an answer. Like, honestly, I wish I could play 6. Like, this is the best card in the deck half the time. But this only is good if you have combo pieces, and the deck is pretty notorious for bricking. This card does contribute to your brick hand sometimes, just due to the fact that it's not a fusion material and it's not a polymerization. But the amount of times you have this card, you just feel so safe because you can play around Ash, Ogre, Droll, Veiler, anything. So these 4 cards are arguable. These could be really whatever you wanted, but for the specific regional, I chose to play 2 copies of Instant Fusion. It was actually pretty solid throughout the entire weekend, allowing you just to make sheep so you could extend your combo plays into Sabretooth or another Link material was really good. And I'm playing Thousand Eyes Restrict, and that card, it came up once, but it was still pretty good. You know, it allowed me to bait one of my opponent's negations because he was playing Infernoid in the side event, and I was able to bait his negate. So yeah, the card's pretty good. And it's a very easy side out as well, so. And then these 2 were probably the most questionable choice of the weekend, but I chose to main deck 2 Twin Twisters. I definitely felt like this was correct simply due to the fact that Sky Striker just likes to set a bunch of cards, and Trickstar, if they open optimally, has 3 to 4 set in their back row at any given time. So If they're playing pure Strictar, they play Floodgates. This is an out to the Floodgates that they play. Also, just it's generically good. Like, helps you in your Draco matchup, helps in the Sky Striker matchup, helps you to clear Widow Anchors and Afterburners, especially multi-roll. Like, getting rid of multi-roll is super important because it means that all those cards are going to get banished. So, like, hitting that card is really important. And this allows you to discard Toy Vendor, Edgem Chain, Wings. You know, you have a lot of discard fodder in the deck. So, again, this was probably the most questionable choice because it really is kind of a win more card. It only helps you either when you already have the advantage or trying to set up your plays. So you could very easily cut these for Kaijus, for hand traps, for whatever you may be, but I felt like Twin Twisters was the correct call at this regional. So that's the 40 card main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. That's the side deck. Batman. For the extra deck, played 1 Radiant, 1 Underclock Taker, and 1 Decode Talker. Pretty staple links. You know, I made Radiant probably the most. Underclock came in clutch, though. This guy's the fucking MVP, alright? If you don't have this in your extra deck, you probably should, unless you're playing, like, Monarchs or Draco or something, but this guy is really good. Just giving you the down arrow. And because you could have, like, just really big, beefy monsters in this deck, you're able to, like, shrink your opponent's guy down to 0 and just get in a bunch of attacks. So this guy's really good. And Decode, very rarely summon him, but you are happy to have him in the extra deck. That's why he's always there. And then Seraph Knight for the Brilliant Fusion, and Thousand Eyes for the Instant Fusion. And then for the Fright First, I played 3 Sabertooth. Very rarely am I summoning this guy, most of the time because a lot of decks just have outs to this card. Like, Scapegoat is an out to this card because then they can make Borreload Dragon and steal it, or they can make Firewall and bounce it. But most of the time, the Nightmare Unicorn is a really good out because they can shuffle it back into your extra deck, so Indestructibility is not as good as it once was. But against the other, like, 95% of the meta, like, Gokis, they don't have this fucking card. Like, they can't out this card unless they make Borreload or Unicorn. Trickstar, similarly, they have 0 outs to this card without Scapegoat, so... And against Rogue, like, Altergeist has a really hard time dealing with this unless they have Kieran. So, but basically what I'm saying is that in-archetype cards are not really built to answer a indestructible monster. So even though I didn't summon this a lot at the regional, it still is a very powerful threat that your opponent has to respect. 2 Kraken, this card is nuts. This card helps you clear Scapegoat like nothing, because you can just get rid of the 2 of the tokens and then kill the 3rd one. So you basically wasted a Scapegoat. And this gets 2 attacks, helps you lead to OTKs. And the fact that it's got 3,000 defense is really good, because most decks can't get to 3k defense to overrun this guy. 2 Tiger. This guy's the MVP. Do not fuck with him. When he's fusion summoned, he pops cards on the field up to the number of fusion material. So this is the card that you really want to protect with your chain blocking. You want to make it Chainlink 1 and a Graveyard Effect Chainlink 2. So it protects it from, like, Ash and Ogre. It still can be targeted with Valor and Impermanence. Like, that's the thing is... so it's the same thing with Goki. Like, when they go with Solday, Chainlink 1, Graveyard Effect Chainlink 2, you can't hit the Isolde with Ash, Ogre, anything like that, but you can still hit it with Valor. And that's why I think Valor is a really good hand trap right now. Because Goki doesn't really have a lot of answers to it. Like, negating the Isolde can sometimes just shut them out of their combo. It sucks against Trickstar because they can just use Licorice to get it off the field. And it's not that great against Sky Striker unless you're hitting like a Kagari, and even then they'll just make Shizuku. So I still think Valor is really good, but this card helps you chain block, and like you can clear the back row, forcing them to chain their Scapegoats, chain their Floodgates, whatever it may be, just to get them off the field to force your opponent to have an action. 1 Sheep, this guy's an Armades, he floats, and he's an instant fusion target. So most of the time if I'm playing around back row, I like to make this guy. Because if I make Tiger and say like the field gets torrentialed, I want to make this guy. Because even if they have another torrential, it means that they can't really torrential this because then it's going to come back. So most of the time if I'm getting torrentialed, or I think my opponent has a torrential, you want to make Sheep because it's going to come back, and unless your opponent has a second card, you're just going to get in a free attack for 2,800. Best card in the extra deck! Daredevil helps you win in time because it has burn effects, and just it's really big. Like 3,000 attack turning into 34 with Sabertooth can kill a lot of monsters. So, and then Wolf, very rarely summon it, but I still think it's worth a slot in the extra deck because if your opponent isn't respecting it, you can just get them. So, 15 card extra onto the side. This is where most of the Theory Crafty went. So 3 copies of Spear Mode. Because we're playing Brilliant Fusion, you can usually just waste your normal summon on this guy. It's fine. But the thing is, if you get Extra Link by Goki, you literally have 0 outs in the deck. Because Dark Hole and Regeki don't break that board because of, I think Goblin says that they can't be destroyed by card effects, and Cerberus says they can't be targeted by card effects. So those cards don't do anything, but you're able to use this guy to like clear the Extra Link and get rid of the Trigate. That's usually what they're going to end on. Or you can get rid of the Firewall, whichever one you think your hand is weakest to. But if they give you Ibly, it's such a hard time to get rid of it, because you've wasted your normal summon on the Spear mode. So, like, you have to, like, set a guy, and you can't even set a guy. So, like, it's basically Spear mode and hope you live a turn against Goki, because there's not a lot of room for hand traps, so. And also, like, against Nightmare Spiral, really anything that's trying to make big boards, you want to side in your Spear modes, because you can, like, against ABC, you can clear, like, Decode Double Buster, Curious Buster, and, like, a Rafflesia or whatever. 3 Chalice. This card's really good going second. It helps you bait negates. And it's decent against Trickstar because you can target their Licorice, and you won't take any burn damage if they reincarnation you. So, and again, it's a chainable card, so very, very good. Then 3 Red Reboot. This card just tells Altergeist to suck a dick. So, most of the time I don't activate Red Reboot unless I can kill them. And, like, sometimes I have 2 in hand, I just use it for my insurance policy, because if my opponent has a wiretap, I can use the other one to negate the other one. I don't like siding in against Trickstar, because paying half your life points isn't that great. But I think it's better than, like, your other main deck cards, so. And then this was the spice of the weekend. Glow Up Bulb, Recover, Naturia Beast, Foolish Burial, 1-for-1, Emergency Teleport. Shout out to Sam Cox. He was the one who showed me this idea. So the theory behind this is that Trickstar and Sky Striker, Trickstar, Pure Sky Striker as well, they need to activate a lot of spells to get their conditions going. So if you just choose to go first game 2, and you board into these, and Fluffal Dog is an Earth. So you play 3 Dog, 3 Foolish Burial Goods, 3 Toy Vendor. There's about like 9 or 11 ways in the deck to access Dog, so you should be able to open it. And then as long as you open like one of these 3 cards, or if you open Brilliant Fusion, like opening Brilliant Fusion Goods and any of these can end on like 2 Links and a Nap Beast, and that's really good. Basically, even if you have to use your extra Monster Zone, you just make the Nap Beast, and like they can't out this guy. Like Trickstar has no outs to a Nap Beast. Like it's 2200 attack, so it beats all of them in battle. They can't use cards like Scapegoat and Light Stage to do anything. They basically have to hope Licorice Reincarnation is enough to kill you. So Pure Sky Striker has almost 0 outs to this guy. Basically their outs is to like summon Ray, summon Shizuku, and then like activate a bunch of spells knowing they're going to get negated to try to shrink the Nat Beast low enough to kill it. So, or like you activate the effect and they like have an impermanence to negate it for the turn so that they can go off. That's really their only out. But otherwise, Nat Beast is just a free win most of the time. And like in mirror matches or in any matchup where your opponent's relying on spell cards, this engine's great. And like you can very easily side out your instant fusions, your twins, and a couple combo pieces because the deck is really redundant. And you can just board into 6 auto win cards. Now there is a downside to this. If you draw these cards after turn 1, they're not that great. Although Foolish Burial's fine, because you can like Foolish Wings and combo off that way, so. So that's going to do it for my Fluffal deck profile for the WCQ season of 2018. Like I said, I don't think this deck is very good, very fragile. You need a lot of pieces to get going. But, again, if you want something fun for locals, if you want something, like, honestly, you can catch people off guard because they just don't know what the cards do. So, if you think you have a really good build, if you think you're a really good player, I definitely think there is a shot for you to get your invite. Just, I didn't get some really good matchups. I played a lot of non-interactive Yu-Gi-Oh! But again, I think this deck is great for locals. If you want a 4 or 5-0 your local and you know it's pretty casual, pick up the deck. It's pretty cheap. So, you can get some very free wins off it too. So, that's about going to do it. Like I said, link to the deck list will be in the description along with my Facebook and Twitter. Go follow me there. And that's going to wrap it up. My name is Nick from Team Table 501. Thanks for watching, and get good scrubs. I'll see you next time.